Deltarune Snowgrave Route is one of the most unique and most disturbing horror experiences in gaming. It blends psychological and meta horror to tell a story about possession and manipulation as you take apart the very skeleton of the game. But before we get to the heart of this game, we first have to pierce its skin. Because on the surface, Deltarune is a game about friendship, growing up, and most importantly, about escapism. Its very structure is built on this theme, as it takes place in two distinct dimensions. The mundane, real light world, and the dark worlds, fantastical places in which everyday objects become characters and parts of its environment. In the dark worlds, every injury can be healed with a little spell, and battles are fought through a turn-based combat system. The dark worlds are like video games, in which Chris and friends have fun adventures, forgetting about the real world. And these dark worlds operate on their own rules. The first chapter very explicitly tells you that you should be nice to people, but even if you don't bother with this, attacking enemies doesn't actually let you kill them. The battle menu, the very skeleton of the game, won't allow it. You seemingly get the option for violence, but the Darkners always get a chance to respawn. They get an extra half a turn to end the battle, to run away. So when you deal enough damage, the Darkners just flee, and if you meet them again, they'll comment on how you beat them up. It is a final safety net to keep the skin, the charming appearance of the game, intact. But just 18 hours after the release of Chapter 2, people found out how to break this fantasy. The initial posts about a secret genocide route were met with skepticism. Evil routes had existed for decades. Games like Mass Effect and Fable, and of course, Undertale existed. But all of these evil routes were made clear as alternate stories, choices you can make from your very first interactions. This Snowgrave route, however, required elaborate steps, feeling more like a creepypasta than anything. This disbelief, however, quickly made place for shock, because if you followed the document of instructions, you would enter the so-called Snowgrave route. A live dissection of the narrative as you corrupt everything from the characters to the very mechanics of the game. It starts around the midpoint in Chapter 2, as the main party splits up, and we are left with Chris and Noelle. This section of the game is usually a light-hearted mess, defined by the chaos of Spamton and Queen and the vibrant city you explore. It is the narrative at its most alive. So naturally, to tear off the first bit of its skin, you have to avoid this altogether, taking Noelle back to the trash area. As you do, Noelle notes that you're going the wrong way. It is the slightest disturbance in the narrative, the first inch of skin peeled off. And it is through this small opening that you deliver the first blow against the game. Because with Noelle in your party, the spell Ice Shock becomes available. The description reads a simple damage with ice. But instead of the usual fighting damage, this damage is not one the Darkness can run away from. And the first bone cracks. Because you have found a loophole to the game's rules. By freezing the enemy, you stop them from running away. You stop that extra turn. You break the very mechanics on which the game is built, the bones that held together its cheerful image. And the consequences of this fracture spill out beyond the battle menu, leaving a permanent stain of violence on this world. Making your way back into the city, it's been gutted of the energy, containing only darkness for you to freeze as the game settles into a more common RPG gameplay loop. And Noelle notices this. Along with the game-like appearance, the dark world starts reminding her of the game she plays with her dad, and the mechanics transform from an escape to a desensitizer. She's not killing people, she's simply winning battles. She's just getting stronger. This adds another layer on Deltarune's meta horror, as your abuse of Noelle is made possible by the very same barrier you hide behind. But as you freeze more and more darkness, eventually they start running away in fear. It is a truly chilling experience, as it reframes the interaction not just as battles, but as a malicious hunt. They run, scared for their life. All except for a single salesman, who offers Noelle and Chris some dating shoes. When you refuse, he instead offers you a freeze ring. And the game gives you a choice. One of many, really. They are the nervous system of the narrative, connecting your will to the game world and giving you a semblance of agency. Most of these are harmless, resulting in a dialogue change or a slightly altered interaction later in the game. This choice, however, is different. Because even though you're $1 short, you tell Noelle to get it. And when she hesitates, you tell her again. And again. And again. Until she can't say no anymore. It is in this moment you hijack the nervous fibers, the very embodiment of agency in this game, and use it to take away the choice of Noelle. You corrupt the very thing that gives you a voice, using it as a tool for manipulation. And this hijacking extends beyond just the choices, because the nervous system is a two-way street. It doesn't just communicate your will to the game, but does the same in reverse. It serves as a bridge between our world and that of the game, telling you details you can't see, sensations you can't feel, and thoughts you shouldn't hear. It is the ultimate breach of privacy as you read Noelle's mind and then respond to it, manipulating her from the inside out, using the nerves of the game against itself. After you have frozen all the darkness in the city, Spamton offers you the Thorn Ring, a twisted symbol of romance that directly harms the one who wears it. And with that ring, there is only one thing keeping you away from the heart. The one piece of skin that holds the original narrative together. Birdley, a mutual friend of Chris and Noelle, almost immediately notices something is wrong. And this one is not as easy to get over. Because where the darkness allowed for this layer of fictionality, Birdley feels a whole lot more real. Noelle urges him to run away, but it's too late, and you enter the battle. And you notice a new spell. And after you charge up your TB, you command Noelle to do Snowgrave. But she refuses, fighting back by telling you she doesn't know that spell. So you tell her again, and again, and again. And with the final command, you kill the narrative. But the game doesn't reward you for breaking it. There's no fanfare, no achievement that the game gives you. Noelle just walks off in shock, and you are left only with a screaming silence and the victim of your murder. The rest of Chapter 2 is taken over by Spamton until you seal the fountain and find that the consequences of your actions have followed you to the light world. With Birdley fallen, there's no way to backtrack, no way to return to normal, as the final bit of skin has been torn off. With the bones broken, the communication of the game in your control, nothing remains to protect the heart of the game. Chris, the protagonist of Deltarune, and the one we control to interact with this world. Because we are not just our player character, like in any other video game. Rather, you control Chris's soul, and with that control, you play as Chris. Even in the normal route, this recontextualizes play as a form of possession, a constant violation of their body. Their resistance, yawning to cover up your words, tearing out the soul, is the heart fighting back against your presence. The Snowgrave route turns this violation into a weapon. You don't just use Chris's body as a vessel, you use their voice, their identity to break down Noelle. It reframes the choices you make, not just as acts of manipulation, but as the theft of Chris's voice. Because as it just so happens, Chris and Noelle were close friends when they were children. And you used his history, her nostalgia for their friendship, her confidence that Chris wouldn't hurt her, to make her into a puppet. And if we visit her in the hospital after closing the fountain, we can catch her pondering about if it was a dream, but mostly about Chris. She notes that they've been acting strange recently, and that the voice that told her what to do was one unlike that of Chris. She is, without knowing it, describing you. And it's here that the game lets you be very cruel. Because if you steal her watch in the dark world, you can show her as a reminder, as proof that it wasn't a dream. This serves no other purpose than to taunt her, to let her know that this is not over yet. Chapter 3 seems to be a soft reset, the dark world giving some escapism to Chris as a fun adventure. But backstage, hidden behind the fun stages made by Tenna, you can find a simulated version of the Snowgrave route, continued past Chapter 2, that sees both Noelle and Chris being used up. On the normal route, this is a haunting warning for Chris, a scary possibility for what you could make them do. On the Snowgrave route, this turns into a horrible reminder, a prophecy for what is bound to happen. And the moment you take the mini Chris out of the game, you make of this prophecy a promise. Here you are, taking control over a different vessel, the threat no longer just to the people around them, but to Chris themselves. Chapter 4 takes this parasitic feeling further, as Chris pulls you out of their body, and the game makes you move around as the soul. It is this incredibly strange feeling, as you see the stand-in for you move around through the world of the game. It allows you to listen in on the conversation between Chris and Noelle about something that happened last night, in between chapters, when Chris had freed himself from your control. They went over to Noelle's house and tried to clean up the mess you made. Told her it was all a stupid prank, told her Birdley is gonna get better, and apologized for acting so weird. They apologized for your actions, but even if it sounded kind of weak and shaky, their voice returned to being theirs. Chris was back. And it is in this moment of complete vulnerability that Noelle asks Chris if she can tell them something else. And the ever familiar proceed prompt shows up. But this time, it's slightly different. Because the second option is not one that can be spoken aloud. It's a last appeal aimed directly at you. Please don't. If you choose this option, Noelle will stop the conversation, but notes that Chris doesn't actually respond. Which means that it is only for you to see. It is a desperate plea, as they can do nothing else but beg for you to stop, reaching out over the bridge that was previously reserved for you and the game's descriptions. So, to reward their ingenuity, you use that exact text box to get into the room and once again possess them. Having left the dark world, it no longer feels like you are breaking a game, rather you are breaking reality. But Noelle doesn't realize and starts getting a bit closer. She tells you about how Chris removed the thorn ring. She keeps inching towards them, She tells you about how Chris told her not to mention any of this because it would get heard. Chris tries to shut her up, but it's just them. Who could possibly hear them here? And the game allows you to answer this question. You no longer need the mask of Chris. You no longer need to hide behind their identity. At this point, you are speaking as yourself. And the moment you do, reality breaks. Your voice is in violation of the world itself as a howling wind enters the room, shaking the snowflakes on the wall. And with your presence fully settled, you confirm Noelle's worst nightmare. Yesterday wasn't a dream, and you can hear her thoughts. And finally, you make Chris a quip. They slide over, fingers pinching something we can't quite make out. But as they get closer, Noelle confirms what we already knew. We can force the thorn ring on Noelle. This symbol of control, the manifestation of the power you have over her. And as you do, Noelle breaks too. The game cuts away to the bathroom, the camera dizzy as Chris slouches in. In their hand, they carry their soul, and they start violently beating it. To them, this heart is nothing more than a parasite that wears their skin that made them manipulate Noelle. And it is in this small opening of power, this small moment where you don't control them, that Chris desperately tries to hurt you. Like you hurt Noelle. Like you hurt them. But of course, in the final act of cruelty, Chris cannot touch you. You are a ghost, a cosmic force interacting with this world through the safety of a video game. And as they put back their soul, they collapse, the only one they actually hurt being themselves. And then the moment passes. You go outside with Susie, and the game seems like it's gone back to normal. The body tries to uphold itself, tries to pretend as if it's okay. But as Susie asks Chris what Noelle wanted to talk about, it breaks. A text box appears with the dialogue choices completely empty. And with it, reality itself seems to stop. It's the nervous system of the game on its final legs, as it fails to give you any options. And it's in this ambiguity that the Snowgrave route leaves you. It leaves you wondering whether you have fully broken the game, whether this is Chris doing, consciously or subconsciously suppressing their thoughts. But I like another interpretation. This text box appears empty because it was meant for Noelle. And the reason we don't get any dialogue options is because she couldn't possibly hear the question. You haven't just taken control over the nerves, you have created new ones, as your absolute control will now extend to Noelle also. This, then, is the essence of the Snowgrave route, a methodical killing where you tear through skin, bone and nerves, recontextualizing all the mechanics of the game to serve your abuse. The horror of the Snowgrave route is not just in the cruelty of the emotional abuse, or in the possession of Chris, but in the constant, gnawing feeling that none of this should be possible. And this feeling is a deliberate, horrifying conversation with its predecessors. Undertale made its genocide a profound conclusion to its meta-narrative. It was in constant conversation with you, testing your empathy against your completionism. It saw the player's love and asked when you finally had enough. Deltarune offers no such conversation. It offers no quirky meta commentary, no fourth wall breaks that call you out for playing in this way. It just gives you a world, a living body, and watches as you infect it. It doesn't see you as a player, it sees you as a parasite. And so, the Snowgrave route is the horrifying answer to Undertale's question. It strips away all the rewards. There's no different ending and no secret bosses on this path. And after removing all these justifications, it removes the one shield that's still standing. It takes away the escapism of a video game. As you are not playing as some grand villain or a character making bad decisions. You are just you. And with that knowledge, it asks you if you can commit an intimate, cruel crime. It asks if you can become an abuser just to see what happens. If you have any thoughts on the Snowgrave route, please leave them in the comments below. And when Chapter 5 releases next year, I'll make sure to analyze that too. So if you want to see more of my content, please subscribe. There is also an accompanying video about some of my other favorite disturbing media up on my Patreon right now, where you can support me more directly and even get your name in these credits.